大家好我叫 Jolly，中文名邱雅云6年前我来到墨尔本的时候，我妈跟着我来，因为我是叫什么来独生女，所以她就比较不放心我然后来的时候我还是比较快适应的，因为墨尔本是一个比较国际的城市，很多人都不来自墨尔本，有很多华人，有很多外国人，各种各样的人都有所以那个环境比较像国际学校的感觉。然后我在国内就是读国际学校，在苏州但是我妈她来的时候还是比较不怎么适应，因为大家都说英文，然后她也不怎么会说英文，而且食物文化也有点不一样。那慢慢她就适应了，因为你来到一个新的环境的时候，都会有一些不适应的地方，但是慢慢的你就会认识到新的朋友，然后尝试到新的食物然后融入当地的这种文化。So experimentation is really cool because you get to apply like scientific style of research to design, and it's kind of like basically A/B testing, but like more structured, and you have basically a hypothesis of like what you think that will happen based on the changes that you make to a website. For example, like the button, you want to make it bigger, you want to change the color, or maybe you change the text, say click me, or maybe click to the website, or small changes. Then you basically use a program and measure your control, which is like you didn't change anything, and then you have like A, B, C, D different tests, and then you run it on the website and basically see what performs better. You have kind of like metrics, like how many people click on it, how long do they like hover their mouse on that section of the website, do they actually click through it. So there's a lot of different like ways you can measure, and then by the end you kind of like optimize your design to be like, this is the one. And sometimes like the results are not what you expect, because you have a hypothesis. You're like, okay, if I make the button bigger, people are more likely to see it. But then maybe your result is like, people don't like big buttons, so they're not gonna click it. So it all depends, and I think that's really fun because you get to like experiment with different design and like see it live.
Yeah, sounds yeah, it looks very much a standard MVP kind of thing, where you have your hypothesis, you build your MVP, you record the data, and then you decide whether or not you want to go into another cycle or try to fix it, like make the button larger or make the button smaller, or you pivot and you just change your job because you can't make buttons. Good day, I'm Alessio, and today here with me is Jolly.
Hello.
So Jolly is a UX designer at REA. REA is a, I guess by now is a global real estate agency. Not really, I'm not sure. I guess Jolly will be able to market it better than I can. So Jolly, would you like to present yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Jolly. I'm a UX designer at REA Group. We basically advertise real estate property to everyone in Australia, and we also have, I guess, companies around the world. I studied digital media in university, just like you are now. I actually so I was born in Hong Kong, and then I grew up in China and then I moved to Melbourne for university. When I go to work, I think of like a UX designer is like, championing the user, because you are going to be the one that will understand the user, the people, actual human beings that are using your website, using your app, or whatever you're trying to like design. And you are going to kind of like understand their problems, understand why they are using it, and what they are frustrated about, and what problem they are trying to solve. So I think from that perspective, it's not about, okay, coming up with the best solution. It's about like, okay, here are the main reasons why people are using it and they're not happy. And I am trying to kind of be the middle person between, the person behind using the experience and the people who are going to make it, aka the developers or your product managers or other people who may have more tech background or business background. I think that UX designer is there. So it's not just kind of like designing what it looks like, but also the experience. UX is user experience. And part of that is coming from like understanding and empathizing, importantly, how the user feel. So it's not about like how you feel, because everyone is like, oh yeah, I'm a user too, I use realestate.com.au, but you are not your user. I think that is a very common mistake that people have, is
what inspires you, I guess, and what do you think is good to keep learning as a UX designer? In my case, I guess I learn a lot from experience, and I try to make like a library for myself of good experiences and bad experiences, like good applications that work well, bad applications that don't work as well, and try to borrow ideas sometimes. But what inspires you? What do you think about that?
I think I have a similar process, because I guess what inspires me is like really good experiences that are kind of invisible and you don't notice like when using it, because like good UX is meant to be seamless and doesn't interrupt what you're doing. So it could be a combination of a lot of things. And when I'm designing something, I first of all look at the problem I'm trying to solve, but also have other people solve the same problem. And you're not trying to be 100% unique. You're not trying to reinvent anything. You're trying to get like what's already there, and it's kind of like a pattern or like already formed like best solution, and applying it to your design. Because big companies like Facebook, YouTube, etc., Netflix, they already solve the problem for you with all their money and research and data. You can leverage that and use it in your design. It's not stealing, because it's kind of like a pattern that people are used to. And to build a good user experience, part of it is to make the experience familiar. So if you're redesigning something that is not familiar, it could be off-putting, and people are like, oh, I don't know how to use it, because they never seen it before. So like when I'm just like looking on Facebook or using a new app, I always like screenshot moments that's like, oh, this is really good. And having that like catalog is really useful when you're kind of like trying to come up with solutions to a new problem. And like, yeah, just inspiration in general. Can I say like two?
You sure? Sure,
Okay.
of course.
The first one is a common one that we do at our workplace. It's called 30, 60, 90 review. It's basically like if you approach the design kind of like step by step, right? So it's not like, okay, designer, it's up to you to come up with the best solution now, and then you make it and then you show them and then they're like, no, too bad, it's not working. 30, 60, 90 is there so that it's basically like 30%, 60%, 90%, and each step you talk to relevant people. And in a big company like REA, everyone wants to know what you're doing because your project is going to affect their project because we're all on the same website. So being able to, the jargon is like managing stakeholders, but it's honestly just like talking to people and making sure they know what decisions you're making. So in the 30%, you're kind of like, hey, we've got like 3 different designs. What do you think? Please let us know your input. And that gives a chance for people to like contribute to your design, and you're not designing something alone. And that's what I like about it. It's kind of like you can talk back and forth, and it's kind of like a creative process, and it's a problem you're trying to solve at the same time with like, research and data and kind of like meaningful decisions. And you're not just designing based on like how good it looks. Obviously that's kind of like a given in design, is that like you want it to look good, but also looking consistent with rest of the website is important too. And then by 60%, you come back to the same people. You're like, I've got your feedback. This is why I accepted your feedback, and this is why I kept my decision. And this allows people to kind of like check off the box and be like, okay, cool, I've contributed, I'm happy with the result. It's kind of also one chance for them to kind of be like, hey, I'm not happy with this, can you prioritize this over another decision? And then by 90%, you're kind of like, cool, the design is pretty much final. This is just showing you that this is what it looks like, no surprises. And it's a really good process, especially if you're working with a lot of people. But also this process can be quite short if you're working on like a smaller project. It also allows kind of people to group up at the same time and make sure that like at the end you're not in a completely different direction to, another of your teammates. The second one is called experimentation. So it's kind of like a subset of UX where you kind of like put on your science lab coats and you're like, hey, I'm going to experiment. And it's very similar to how you would write like in high school, you write a science report, you have your hypothesis, you have assumption, and then you say, I'm going to run a control test and test ABC, and then these are my results, and then the conclusion and evaluation. So for example, I have a website and I want to make people click on a button. I can make the button really big, or I can change the text or what it is. But I think the hypothesis is important because...
Let's do like a fake goodbye. All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.